I'd like to welcome you to yet another weekly investor forum. Let us introduce our special guest for this evening, Kevin O'Brien Chang, Director and Chairman of Fontana Pharmacy. We encourage viewers to post their questions on social media and remember to tag us with the hashtag MIL Investor Forum. If you enjoyed this program, be sure to share and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We also will be featuring a market segment on foreign exchange, so be sure to stick around until the end of the program. Fontana Limited, popularly known as Fontana Pharmacy, was established in 1968 at the Manchester Shopping Centre in Mandeville by Bobby and Angela Chang. The company's core operations is the sale of pharmaceutical items. However, Fontana has diversified its product offerings to include beauty and cosmetic items, housewares, and home decor, among other things. Fontana has 6 retail stores spread across the island, accumulating over 65,000 square feet of combined store space and 350 members of staff. The company's latest development during the financial year ended June 2020 was the opening of the flagship store at Waterloo Square. The pharmacy is historically the largest on the island with 35,000 square feet. Fontana is a publicly listed company and was listed on the Junior Stock Exchange with an effective date of January 8, 2019. It trades under the ticker FTNA, Fontana. I take this moment to remind you that if you're seeking to expand your portfolio or embark on your first investment journey, Mayberry Investments can guide you in achieving your financial goals. Follow us on social media and visit our website at www.mayberryinv.com to learn more. Our social media handles should pop up somewhere on the screen. Now let's introduce our very special guest for this evening. His name is Kevin O'Brien Chang, and he holds a Bachelor's of Science degree in Statistics and a Master's of Business Administration in Finance and Marketing from the University of Toronto. In 1989, he became Managing Director of Fontana Pharmacy, which, as some of you may know, is a family-owned business. Now Chairman of Fontana Pharmacy, Mr. Chang is also a published author, having penned Jamaica for Real and Reggae Roots. He'll be giving us an investor update today. So, Mr. Chang, welcome. Also online,
thanks for having me.
Excellent. Also online, I would like to welcome our CEO, Gary Parrott. Welcome, Gary. And additionally, our Chairman, Christopher Berry. Welcome, gentlemen.
Hi, Chris.
Pleasure to have you all. Great. So moving straight over to you, Kevin, I believe you have a presentation of sorts to make to us. We'd love to hear from you.
Okay. Thanks for having me, guys. Back up one slide, please. Can you back up one more slide? Up. Okay. Yeah, this is Fontana. All good inside since 1968. And as you can see on the screen, we started in Mandeville in 1968. In 1994, we expanded to Mobay. 2007 to Staff. In 2013, a double, we moved to Otrios and Barbican, Kingston, you know, the big town for we country folks, right? And then in 2019, Waterloo, our flagship right now. We like to think it's close to first world shopping experience there. We're trying with Jamaican ones, you know. So that's the story of Fontana in a nutshell. Okay, could you see the next slide? Yeah, our core principles. As you see my parents in the picture, Bobby Chang and Angela Chang. Bobby is still alive. Angela passed sadly in 2014. Well, these were the core principles on which they founded Fontana. The service, the customer comes first. Respect, treating everyone with dignity. Nobody better than anybody else. Family, valuing our loved ones. It's a family business, and we cater to all members of the family, from the baby to the granny. And community, giving back. You know, where we don't consider that we are a business, it does take, we have to give back. You're part of a town, community, a town, and a country, you know. And we still adhere to these values. We try our best to make sure we keep our feet on the ground and don't forget where we're coming from. Yeah, the Fontana culture. Established in 1968 by Bobby and Angela, I mentioned before, at Manchester Shopping Centre, Mandeville. And at the time, Manchester Shopping Centre was only the third shopping centre in Jamaica. The first was Tropical Plaza. The second was Ligoni Plaza. And Manchester Shopping Centre was the third. Those days, it was a big thing. Mandeville was country, and people didn't have shopping centres. So it was quite a risk, but my parents had vision. And they saw this was the future. People are getting cars, so and it was an instant success due to the hard work and friendly manners of Mr. and Mrs. Chang and the customer first principle they instilled in the staff. Interestingly, it was Fontana Fashions and Fontana Pharmacy. We were a department store, and the pharmacy was a smaller one, but the customers gravitated to the pharmacy, and that's where we focused on. And these ladies on the screen, we call them affectionately our golden girls. Ruth Lynn May Sherwood, Faye Stewart Plunkett, Pat Forbes. They have been with the company for over 45 years now. They don't like me telling their ages, but they've been here loyal. And they have served as the primary transmitters of Fontana's customers come first culture to the present staff. My parents inculcated this in these ladies, and each store we have opened, these ladies have helped hire the staff, talk to them, and hire people with their own thinking, their own vision, their own culture, And our culture is, as I say, I think we think of ourselves as a culture. Yes, we sell goods and all that stuff, but it's a culture that we think we try to hold on to, that we customers come first. We're here to please the customer. That's what we tell our staff. And our strengths, we think we have the best selection of what we carry in Jamaica. And one of the big things is, my mother was excellent when she started, and she passed on her skills to her daughter Anne, our current CEO, chief buyer and things. And I don't like to brag, but I think Anne is the best purchaser in Jamaica. Her selection is unparalleled, and she learned very well from Angela. And she's one of the reasons, maybe the biggest one, that we always have the goods the customer wants. That's what essentially Fontana, the first goal. What the customer wants, we are supposed to have it. The friendly service, well, as I say, we focus on treating customers like family. We are big on family. We're a family operation, even though we had an IPO, and we stress that we try to treat our staff like family, and we want the staff to treat customers like family. That's where one thing we hang our hat on. And of course, part of good service is making sure the staff must know what the customers want. If customers come, we don't have it, you ask them, and we get it for you next time. And the first world shopping experience, as I say, Anne, I mentioned my sister and her husband Ray Terrien. They came in 2000 from Canada with that first world Canadian can-do attitude. So we try to have a first world shopping experience, efficiency with Jamaican warmth, not cold and, like sometimes abroad. We try to give the efficiency with the warmth. Next slide, please. Yeah, Fontana brand Jamaica. We're big on being Jamaicans. If you notice Fontana's colors, red, green, and gold. It's a little more colorful than the black, green, and gold, but we're specifically picked it to reflect our Jamaicanness. It's colorful and Jamaican. As part of our continuing efforts to help build brand Jamaica, we've invested in a department dedicated to artisans and small businesses with locally produced items and products to help build brand Jamaica. It's at Waterloo and at Fairview. We plan to bring it to others. You will sell souvenirs and stuff too, the t-shirts and the souvenir stuff. But the brand Jamaica, the artisan area is Jamaican products. And we have a Jamaican book section also. So we are always proud to be Jamaican. We can never forget that part of us. Even as we have tried to have first world efficiency, it must come with that Jamaicanness. And another thing at Fontana, we like to make it easy to shop. And with coronavirus, COVID, shopping online has been a big thing. We have a nice online store. We have been building it gradually. But I think if you go on it, you'll find it's very first world experience there, and we are trying to get all the nuts and bolts together. We've gradually been doing that, but it's a nice shopping experience, I believe. WhatsApp, you can send us messages on WhatsApp, especially prescriptions, we do that also. And quick car delivery, we also do that. And we also have curbside delivery during coronavirus when it was the peak, when people didn't want to even come out of their cars. So as I say, customers comes first, and customers like easy shopping. So that's part of our customer first mantra. Yeah, and here are our executive directors. As I mentioned, Ray and Ann, husband and wife. Ray is the chief operating officer. He oversees all aspects of finance for the organization. His main responsibilities are overseeing day-to-day operations and the key areas of focus being pharmacy and logistics of overseas purchasing, clearing trailers and that kind of stuff, bringing them in. And Anne is the chief executive officer. She has oversight of local and foreign purchasing, supplier relations, marketing, and she's also been integral in establishing our social media footprint, as well as a customer rewards program. And we have our rewards customers. Everybody who signs up, they get 20% off everything on their birthdays. And everybody gets a birthday call. And we also have special customers. The ones who reach a very high ranking, they get a $1,000 gift certificate. So anybody listening to this, if you're a Fontana customer and you don't get your birthday call, come and sign up. It means you have not signed up. And I'm the chairman. I went to school in Canada, University of Toronto. Came back to Jamaica in 1989. Nowhere no better than yard. And I, with the aid of the managers who were there and my parents, we built up Mandeville into the largest pharmacy. And people used to come and tell us, we need one of these in Mobay. And so we went to Mobay. And the rest has been organic growth, I would say. More people demand, come here, come to Sav, come to Ochi, come to Kingston. We believe this. If there's one secret of Fontana, listen to the customer. We consider ourselves, hospitality is one of our main things that, we want to make the customer feel good. And of course, along with that, you have to make the staff feel good. Happy staff, happy customers. So that's our emphasis, listening to the customer.
Thanks for that, Kevin. Really appreciate that. I would like to know, since this is a financial investment program, I'd like to now look at the numbers and give a perspective as a financial analyst. So Fontana Pharmacy, first off, I want to just show you the chart as to how that stock price has traded over the last 12 months, and you'll see that it's had a high of $6.50, a low of $4.60. As we said before, the stock IPO'd in December 2018 when they raised $468 million from the market at $1.88. It was heavily oversubscribed and almost immediately went to $3.30, which happens to be my average price, Kevin, and I'm a happy shareholder in Fontana.
I'm glad to hear that.
Perhaps the top 50 shareholders. So I like the stock, but let me tell you folks why I like it. So here's a stock that's trading today at $6.03, which represents an 18.44 times PE ratio in a market where I like to think of the par as being about 22 times, although the junior market average is a little rich right now at 25 times. So relative to par, I think of 22 times as being par. I think the stock is at least 20% undervalued. But when we look at the trailing earnings, you'll see that it's 33 cents. So the question is, do we think that earnings is flat, or can it grow further? And would that further push the price as I would expect? Moving on to the next slide, let's look at how well they've done in the last 9 months. So June year end, so 9 months to March, you can see that they grew their revenues by 11%, up to $3.9 billion, grew the gross profit by 10%, managed to reduce both admin costs and selling and promotional costs, had a little uptick in the finance costs. I'm sure it's related to some foreign exchange losses and the lease accounting, but most importantly, they've managed to grow their profit, the bottom line that counts, by 56% to $366.7 million. So this is this 9-month period compared to the previous 9-month period. So this is despite COVID, people. Remember, COVID came in mid-March last year, so it wasn't a big factor really in their March 2020 results. So here we are comparing a COVID 9-month period to their prior 9-month period, and here it is. Fontana clearly has unlocked the COVID code and managed to increase their earnings by 56%, growing total assets to $3.45 billion, making a $366.7 million profit along the way, paying $100 million in dividends, and paying down $200 million in debt. So sounds like it was a pretty good 9-month period, if you ask me. In addition, this is a business with $1.76 billion in shareholders' equity, but only $200 million in debt. So very lowly leveraged, paying nice dividends, now sitting on $800 million of cash and $800 million of inventory. So I smell more dividends to come. Going on to the next slide, you want to look at the quarterly results. I always like looking at the quarterly results and seeing what trends you can pick up. And here's what is obvious to me. In the last 3 quarters, what you can clearly see is when you compare that to the previous quarter of the prior year, because the results are a bit seasonal. Q2 has traditionally been their strongest quarter because that's the quarter ended December, and obviously the Christmas sales tend to provide quite a bit of a kicker. When you look at these last 3 quarters, whether it was the June quarter, the December quarter, or the March quarter, each of these quarters are substantially better than the prior comparable quarter. So it makes me ask the question, what are we to expect for Q4 2021? And I am going to predict that this trend is going to continue, and you're going to see that Q4 grow by perhaps 50%, which means this EPS can still continue to grow, and therefore my prediction of a further 20 to 30% increase in stock price is quite possible. One more reminder, although it's on the junior stock exchange, this is a stock that trades with great liquidity, trading more than $650 million in 2019 when it had a high of $9, and in the COVID year, trading more than $477 million with a high of $7 during the COVID period. So again, this is a stock that trades with good volume. There are many junior stock exchange companies who cannot boast of trading $600 million of volume in a single year. So quite significant from my point of view, and it's the reason why, Kevin, I love the stock, and I think you have much more room for growth.
Thanks for those kind words, and I hope your predictions are correct, sir.
So do I, and I won't ask you to make any forecasts on this presentation. I don't want to get you into trouble, but we are looking forward to Q4, Kevin. That's all I have to say.
This is your job, not mine.
Say again?
Your job, not mine.
Exactly.
To make predictions.
Exactly. And my job is to jump into a few questions. So first question, Kevin, for you. Several pharmacies worldwide are a part of a vaccination effort. Is that something Fontana is looking forward to?
We would be very glad if it was asked of us or it was needed. But I'll tell you something, this may be a bit off topic, but I find the take-up of the vaccines in Jamaica is not where it should be. And I think the government can do more to market why you should be getting a vaccine. Now look on Britain, right? Britain has vaccinated like 50 million people, mainly with AstraZeneca.
Yeah.
Their COVID has plummeted to almost nothing right now. It's 5 died yesterday, 9 today. They could be educating the populace about this. When I tell people, they're not aware of this. And I think the government should be really doing a more vaccination, marketing to tell people why they should, because sooner or later, America and Britain are going to reach 70%. And if they see Jamaica at 2030, they're going to say, you guys are not ready. We're not going to advise our people to visit you, even if our numbers are low COVID-wise. So a bit off topic, but I think the government They've done a good job overall, but please, we need to get some more vaccination education among the public.
No, I
They're not educated at all.
absolutely agree. We stand no chance of even getting to 10% vaccination by this summer, and yet we are expecting this summer period to be a very strong period from the tourism perspective. So I concur with you, Kevin. Second question from us is, Fontana adopted a curbside pickup model in March 2020. Was this a success, and is it sustainable?
It was a success. A lot of people at the time, the fear was high. People didn't want to come out of their cars. But I'll be frank, it's tapered off a bit. What we think at Fontana, this is our thinking, maybe I'm wrong, we think we give customers an enjoyable shopping experience. And in fact, customers told us when it was the height of the lockups, the fear that Fontana, they like coming, just going out. They couldn't go anywhere. So they came to Fontana dressed up as a day out or night out. We try to make shopping fun. So when customers can come in there, they prefer. A lot of people tell us they go on their website, they see stuff, they want to buy it, but they like to come to the store because they enjoy being there. Our staff try to make them feel at home. And there's the old TV shows to be Cheers. You want to go, everybody knows your name, right?
Yes.
And I think one of the strengths at Fontana, our regulars, our staff knows their name, so they feel like it's part of home. We try to give that feel, and I think we're fairly successful. The customers speak for themselves.
Well, you're obviously doing something right. To have grown your sales by 11%, despite COVID, despite these dreaded lockdowns from a commercial business point of view. How did you do it?
As I said, put customers first. First of all, you got to have what they want. That's what Ann takes care of that. And Ray runs things very efficiently. But you make it fun. You make people feel at home, warm, friendly. It's a mantra, people say it, and I guess but we try to tell that's how what must be like that. And as I said, it goes with the staff. We try to be that way with our staff. We empower our staff. We don't see them as employees. They're part of us, part of our family. And the ladies who have been with us for a long time, they're like family and aunts to me, and they pass it on to other staff. But as I say, it's all about making the customers enjoy the shopping experience. They say, I want to go to Fontana. I don't know if I want to buy things. I like being there. That's what we try.
Well, I can definitely relate. I think it's one of the main reasons my daughter encouraged me to buy some of the stock for her. And before you know it, I had a few million units. Next question. What was the growth rate for online shopping and delivery activities like since March 2020? And how sustainable has it been since the relaxation of the curfew measures?
It was significant and pretty good. And, a lot of people didn't want to come out. But at that time, a lot of people tell me they see the stuff on online. And they said, I could buy it online, but I like coming to Fontana. But it's good. We're happy with how it's going, and we plan to invest more resources in it as it goes on. And we're happy with how it's going.
Excellent. Gary, what about you? Do you have any questions for Kevin?
Sure. Congrats. Wonderful performance. The first thing that comes to mind, you have about 5 or 6 branches now. Would you consider expanding outside of Jamaica?
Listen, we are always a company that always willing to look and listen and evaluate. That's always our thing. If a good opportunity comes up, we have to do our due diligence. But we're very open-minded. As I say, remember Fontana started. The big store was the clothing store, the Fontana Fashion. The small one was the pharmacy. After a year, I remember I was young, my parents said, look, the pharmacy's out doing the fashions. Let's switch it, make the pharmacy bigger. And eventually the clothing store went down. So we are flexible and open-minded. Whatever looks good and when the due diligence is done, we're quite willing to go along with it.
Thanks, Kevin. Appreciate that. One more from me. With immense disproportion between sectors and businesses that are experiencing surges in online sales, what has Fontana done to keep their customers coming back?
Well, I hate, when I came on there, my sister said, Ryan, don't repeat yourself. Don't stick to one thing. But I keep coming back to the same thing, that it's making customers feel good. Look, you got to have the basics right. You got to have the goods that the people want. That's the number one thing. As I tell my staff all the time, if you give the best service in the world and the customers come, you don't have what they want. They got to buy it somewhere else. And I go to somewhere that staff is cranky and miserable, but they got what you want. So first thing is, that's why the staff, we tell them, look, they don't have what the customer wants today. Write it down, and we'll get it for them and call them, right? And we try to keep our prices reasonable. If you check our pharmacy prices, for example, we are very, very competitive in the dispensary and OTC goods. Anybody can check that out. There's, a lot of different things we sell, others don't. And people say this, but you check our pharmacy dispensary prices, we are very competitive with anyone, And so that's the thing. They're having what they want at a reasonable price, a pleasant atmosphere. If you look at Waterloo, and I hate to keep beating my own drum, and again, it's Ann and Ray are responsible for it, but I think our Waterloo store is a beautiful store. I think, when I go up there, I say, wow, this is nice. But again, self-praise is no recommendation. Others can see what I think is correct. And the staff, the staff, we try to keep them happy, and we figure if we keep them happy, they'll keep customers happy.
Well, the numbers don't lie, and like I said, 11% increase in sales and 56% increase in profit. You've got to be doing something right. Chairman Berry, any questions from you for Kevin?
Hi, Kevin. How are you doing?
Hi, how are you, boss? Everything good?
Yeah, man. Tell me, with the government playing such a big role in giving away drugs in Jamaica, is this impacting your pharmacy sales in any way? And do you think they will be able to keep up this huge role they're playing in giving away stuff?
Well, listen, we're not here to talk politics, but I will say this. I find this government quite responsive to the needy, put it that way. The ones who really can't afford. We're not the richest country in the world, Jamaica. And there are a lot of people who they struggle to make ends meet, and they're going to struggle even more when they get ill and need stuff. And I think the government has been responsive and dealing with that sector very well. And I don't think it has impacted us much, frankly. I'll be honest. We offer the government services that we can, the access to it. But the government has targeted the ones really in need that probably can't afford to buy stuff anyway, so it wouldn't impact us. And those are the ones I think they're dealing with. So I don't see it as any conflict with us. I think it's in harmony. Listen, the bottom line, you're part of a country. You have to have a stable country, and we have to be glad. Again, it's off topic, but you look around the world. You see Colombia, these places, giant demonstrations, people getting shot down. You look at calm, peaceful Jamaica. Yes, we have a crime problem. Let's not deny that. But when last have we seen a big demonstration in Jamaica? And I think that's why I say we're part of a community and a country. We all play our part. That's why we are big on brand Jamaica. And a lot of smaller people come and sell at Fontana. And we try to give them a couple of brands, that have started, I guess off topic, but it's come out to the same thing, Chris, that the government, by dealing with the needy, they're not impacting the private sector as far as I see. That is the point I'm trying to make. I think they're doing a good job what they're supposed to do without interfering with the private sector, which is good.
Yeah, but in the case of chronic drugs, it's not just the needy. Once you're a Jamaican citizen and you sign up the form, whether you're rich or you're poor, you still get it. It's free for everyone in Jamaica. It's not just for the needy. So that's what I was talking about. And most other countries, that would have been paid through insurance plans and private sector. So, that's a huge part of the market right there that the government's taking.
Well, as I say, listen, you can never talk about the future, and it may well start to impact us. We can't say, but right now we would say that it seems to be not impacting us to a great extent. But you never know for the future. And the government, I think, again, this is not politics, but good governments do listen. They listen to all sectors of society because they know that I'm a capitalist, let's face it. We're a liberal, democratic, capitalist country. that they're the private sector is the driver of the economy, and the governments have to make sure you don't interfere with the efficiency of your private sector. But there are some private sectors in the world where they get selfish and they want everything, even if it causes suffering, and then you have upheavals. So good government balances the private sector to keep it efficient, not interfering and hampering it, while looking at the needs of the needy to make sure you balance it. So far, it's decent, but who knows for the future? And if it does, well, we will have to speak when we speak out. But I said decent balance right now, without not being political or anything, just the balance of a country that I think is decent now.
Yes, Kevin. Good political answer. My follow-up question is, I know your new store, Waterloo store, has been doing really fantastic. It's a beautiful store. I hear a lot of customers raving about it. Seeing that you've covered most of the island with stores already, is there a plan to replicate this type of superstore concept in the bigger cities across the country? You know, what can we expect along, you know, the store upgrade line, you know?
Well, I can only say we are a listening organization. If a good opportunity comes up, it suits our model, we are always willing to listen. You know, if it ticks the boxes for us, good location and space and, you know, demographics, we're always willing to listen. And we always are hopeful that good opportunities will come, that people come to us and they say, hey, this is the opportunity, we can't resist. We are very hopeful that people come to us with those kind of opportunities. But we are very open-minded, always willing to listen, and when a good offer is made, yeah, we are glad to always take it up. And I'll say one thing, pleasantly surprised about our Waterloo store. We were thinking about, you know, you expect some cannibalization with Barbican in Kingston. And we've been pleasantly surprised that it's been a win-win situation. We haven't had any great sufferation at Barbican. So we're very pleasantly surprised in that aspect.
Well, happy to hear that, Kevin. And again, I don't need to remind you that you have $800 million of cash. And so,
well, they say keep your powder dry, right?
I like it. So you got to do one or two things with it, right? You got to grow the business through some acquisitions or pay some nice dividends. One of the two.
Well, again,
I'm
we
happy
believe
either
in
way.
balance. We believe in balance, so we want to keep our shareholders happy.
Yes.
But suppose a great opportunity or two comes along and then no cash, you got to keep your powder dry. So again, it's a balance. And Ray is our finance guy. We discuss things, but
Yes.
Ray is pretty good at these things.
Absolutely. And I'll be giving Ray a call to let him know he doesn't have to sit on all that much cash. He can have a
Ray has a
ready line available.
Ray has a math degree from Western University in Canada. He knows his numbers.
Yes. We're going to teach him about lines of credit so that you can put that cash to use otherwise. Tell me, Kevin, how is the...
We're the listening guy.
We'll be talking. Don't worry about it. We'll be talking. How is the retail sector being impacted by COVID-19, in your opinion, Kevin?
Listen, we are God blessed. Every day at Fontana, we give thanks. Because, you know, you see people in other sectors. You see the tourist sector booming, great thing for Jamaica. There's a virus in China in December 2019. You hear about this in the back of your mind. 3 months, books, lockdown. I talked to my father, my uncle, by the time my father, my Uncle Charlie lived. Have they ever seen a change like this in their lifetime? They say, nope, not even World War II. They saw this kind of change in behavior of day-to-day life. So, you know, it's a thing that you have to adjust to. Hello?
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. No, I appreciate that. Fontana Pharmacy is also known for its partnerships with several local brands. Do you also partner with any international brands?
Come again?
So I was saying Fontana Pharmacy is also known for its partnership with several local brands. Do you guys also partner with any international brands?
Yes, we do partner a few of them. I don't know the names offhand right now, but Anne, again, I come back to her. Anne is aces at her job. She knows what the customers want. She gets the best prices. She partners, so she covers all the bases. Yes, as I say, Anne has more detail on these things, but I know we do talk about it, and she'll tell us, oh, we're partnering with this brand and that brand. So yes, we do quite a bit. I don't know the names offhand, but I know for a fact it is one of the things that Fontana is big in partnerships in any kind of way, and we partner a lot with the government. We When we were open Waterloo, we were the first business. We partnered with the Ministry of Labor to train our staff and hiring and training, and we partnered with the Minister of Culture with a Miss Who initiative that I post in every school. We partnered with the Minister of Education for Jamaica Day, their first partner. So I just bring that in that we partner with anybody that who once it's a mutually beneficial relationship. We love we love win-win situations.
Thanks for that. Thanks for that, Kevin. Gary, any more questions from you before we go over to social media?
Sure. I hear Kevin, talk wonders about Anne and Ray and Ray and Anne and Anne and Ray. And what comes to mind is succession. As great as Ray and Anne are, their time will come and go. How's the company set up to succeed? Ray in terms of the math brain from primary school, and Anne, the great fashion purchaser.
Well, we have a succession plan in place. You can't tell everything in public, right? But we are not unaware of what you're saying, that you have to have the people at the top, the next generation, what's going to happen there. And we do think about it, and we do have plans, and we do see a succession plan. Look, who knows life, how things are going to turn out. That if all goes as expected, that Fontana will continue to be able to do what it does for another generation at least. And
yeah. So Kevin, let me give you an easy one.
And I can't speak when I pass off to Earth. I could not say.
Right.
Let's hope.
Let me give you.
By the time I leave, there's a good succession.
Right. Let me give you an easier one. That one had you all over the place. There are some companies that have done well from COVID. Not necessarily by design, but how the curfew hours went. I mean, you have a great brand, people gravitate towards you, online, fixed locations, etc. How sustainable are these numbers? Because there are some companies that when we get back to life after COVID, people are going to go back to, as you've said, face to face. How they go about purchasing, etc., might change. Do you believe Fontana will be able to sustain these levels of earnings? And if so, why?
I think so, yes. As I said before, we've been very, very fortunate. To be as a pharmacy situation. You feel sorry for other people in other industries where no fault of their own. Books, zero income. I remember Dolphin income went to zero last year. I don't know, it's probably better now, but Fontana, we've still been impacted. The curfew hours have cut our opening hours. We're trying to become more efficient. The Chinese say that the crisis is an opportunity. So this was an opportunity to tighten our operations, to cut make it more efficient and things run smoother, less friction. But we have been affected. Less shopping hours means less time for people to shop. And if you look in the US, Target was kind of a role model of a sorts for us, and Walmart too. They have bounced back big time since the vaccines in the US and the opening back. And why wouldn't that be the case in Jamaica? Why wouldn't I said the BOJ is predicting, no, who is it, BOJ? No, EPOC, or one of them, I forget, 8% growth this year, and we figure if Jamaica's gonna grow 8%, we should at least, Fontana, one thing we do, try to keep up with the growth of the country. We should never be laggards, and so I don't see any reason why we wouldn't, if the country bounces back. Look at Ochi and Mobe are two of our key stores. Mobe is still the big store, right?
Yes.
And they were rocked hard by tourism. If tourism bounces back there, and I mean, we're keeping our fingers crossed and not going to brag and boast, but we're hoping that as tourism bounces back, so will we. That's our hopes and expectations.
So, Kevin, what I hear you saying is despite the 11% growth in sales, you have in
Yes.
fact been impacted by COVID. And
Right.
so you think on the balance of everything adjusting itself, there's future growth in the business
Yeah,
as
but
we
look
go
at
back
it
to
now.
normal.
Look on Saturdays. Saturday is our big day at Fontana, right? We got to close at 4 o'clock. It was 2 o'clock. It's 4 o'clock. And we got to close like an hour and a half before so staff can get home. So now we're going to close at 8 o'clock in the country and 10 o'clock in the city, 10 o'clock at Saturday night. And now we're closing at 2:30. So logic says when we can go longer, you'll have more people. That's our, as I say, that's what our.
So Dan, if I can clarify what Kevin is saying for investors, is that despite a 50% jump in profit, there are at least two big stores that are nowhere near their potential. So if we can just dream and think of a time when COVID will no longer be here, which may be in 6 months, and all of these stores come online, Kevin, is it fair to say there's another 100% jump in profit in there?
Sir, I'm not the profit. He is, all right? You know, there's a famous
You're blushing,
saying.
Kevin, you're blushing, we're seeing.
There's a famous saying. The movie director, Goldberg or something, said, never make predictions, especially about the future.
I hear you. Well, if I'm not an investor, I need to be an investor quickly.
We always hope for the best, but we don't want to get presumptuous.
I hear you, the numbers don't lie.
Humility is part of what we think. Be humble.
Agree, but you said Ray's a mathematician and the numbers don't lie.
The current numbers don't lie. The future ones, we hope, will tell the truth also.
Excellent, Kevin. Excellent work. I have no further questions, Dan.
Thanks for that, Gary. Thanks for that, Kevin. As I said, we're going to move on to some social media questions, but folks out there, listen to Dan Theok when I tell you, say, the next quarter's results are going to be huge, one way or the other. And I certainly will be back to say, I told you so. But Kevin, you need not comment. I don't want to get you into trouble with the Jamaica Stock Exchange, but I can see the trend very clearly.
But Dan, why do you think so?
Well, I'm just looking at the quarterly results, and I'm saying for the last 3 quarters on average, the results have been 50% better than the previous year, and it's still not necessarily an all-time high yet. So
right.
I really think he has lots of legs left in him when I think of this 11% sales growth in the midst of the pandemic and increase in profitability. I personally do believe that there's more sales growth out there. He's probably capturing market share and becoming more efficient in the process. That's what I see happening at Fontana.
Do you think it's a buy?
I absolutely think it's a buy.
You think it's a buy?
Well, Gary, the high of this stock was $9. At $8.50, it traded over $150 million. And all that has happened is the market got nervous because of the pandemic. So when we come out of this nervous period and Kevin gets back into his rhythm, I don't see why this stock won't be back at $8.50. That's just my view.
Gary.
Yes.
I'm renaming him. His middle name is now John.
Who?
Dan John Theok. As long as it's Big John and not Little John, I'm okay with it. As long as it's Big John. Great.
Well, Dan, thank you for letting me know.
Dan Big John Theok.
Big John. And speaking of Big John, I have to give a hail out to Big John.
Big John.
I have to give a hail out to the Big John and to Mr. Kevin USA, 2 great friends. Social media, I think we have a question for Kevin, and we're running out of time, so probably only 2 questions, unfortunately, guys. First one is from It's Money Mark. Are there any plans for Fontana to acquire any pharmacies or pharmacy chains in Jamaica or in the Caribbean? Money Mark's asking that question of you, Kevin.
As I say, you can only evaluate the options in front of you, and if they are, when you crunch the numbers and it makes sense, we do it. But it's hard to make any specific predictions, except that we're always open-minded looking and keeping our powder dry in case we need to move fast.
I like the sound of it, and having $800 million of dry powder and access to another billion-dollar line can't hurt either. Riding Dunes asks, thank you for the presentation. What would you say is Fontana's target market or audience, and who are Fontana's top competitors?
Our audience, I tell you what, if I nutshell it, we are still a pharmacy first and foremost, right? And especially during COVID, we saw that it has grown. So anybody who drives and you within 20 minutes, live within 20 minutes of a Fontana, you're a potential dispensary customer. So that's it. Anybody who drives and lives within 20 minutes of Fontana, we have to say this. The people who shop at Fontana are people who have cars. That's a given. Or they're nearby with transport. So well, that is a reality of where we are. And that's why we have adequate parking. That's our nutshell customer.
Got it. Speaking of people who have cars, and one of the most populous places in Jamaica, David Rose asks, Fontana's Kingston business is magnificent. I agree, David. With Portmore gaining a lot more investment and traction, such as the new PriceSmart branch, have you identified any space for build-out in Portmore?
As I say, we keep evaluating all options that come on our table.
I like the sound of that, Kevin. Thanks for that question, David. Moving on to our giveaways, we'd like to congratulate our winners from our Instagram giveaway, courtesy of Fontana Pharmacy. And they are Andrea Wine, Moya Moy, and Shaq CXM. Thanks, folks.
Only we love the partner.
Appreciate it. Okay, moving right along, guys, into our next segment, we'd like to look at our top stock picks for the day. Great, and the next great stock pick of today, we talked about Fontana. We didn't have Kevin here by chance. The next one I'd like to recommend is Mayberry Jamaica Equities. Now, I work for MIL, don't get it twisted. This is a related party. That's why we have Mr. Berry and Mr. Perrott online, since they are the main portfolio managers for this particular MJE. But from a Dan Theok perspective, here we go again. I want to look at how this stock has traded over the last year or so, from a high of $13.16 to a low of $7.56. Now, Mayberry Jamaica Equities is a managed portfolio. So when you look at these portfolio of listed companies, what you really want to focus on is what is the net asset value of the stock? What are the sum total of all of the equities owned divided by the total number of shares in the portfolio? That's what you want to pay attention to. So here's a company trading today at $7.56, but it has a NAV or a book value per share of $12.59. Ask yourself, why is it trading at a 40% discount to the sum total of the equities which it has? Doesn't make sense to me. None at all. Next slide. In terms of its profitability as a managed portfolio, these guys have $11.7 billion in total equity, $13.6 billion in assets, and this is based on the March results where they had the $9.75 NAV I mentioned. But if you read, you'll see that they've updated their NAV to $12.59. What must that mean? And as an analyst, again, I have no inside information, it must mean that the equity has grown from $11 billion to $15 billion, just simple math. I may not have a math degree like Ray, but I certainly know my numbers. So the total assets are probably in the region now of $15 billion, but yet the stock is still trading sub $8, 40% discount to its book value. Doesn't make sense to me. Coming out of the pandemic, we see where their total comprehensive income for the last 3 months was minus $195 million. Profit was $300 million. What's happening here is some of the equity gains are marked through fair value through P&L, some go through to OCI. But what I'm more focused on is $13.6 billion in assets in a market where we're expecting a lot of growth from a lot of the equities in that portfolio, $11.7 billion in equities. Now, there are only 3 other closed funds or ETFs out there in the market that are comparable to MJE. So you've got MJE, the big boss in my view, with somewhere between 13 and $15 billion of assets. You have the 2 Sagicor Selects, Select F, Select M&D, and you have QWI. And I'm here to tell you as an analyst that MJE has a larger portfolio than all 3 combined, and more shareholders' equity, more retained earnings and equity than all 3 combined times 3. So it's a big deal. So I may be Big John, but obviously Chris and Gary are big bosses. Moving on to the next slide. Total assets. Again, we talked about Fontana and how well it did in the past. Fontana traded as high as $9, traded more than $120 million at $8.50. Same is true of MJE in a sense. Its assets in the last 2 years, I've just shown you what the total asset value has been. MJE, for full disclosure, carries $2.2 billion of debt, and you can see what they've done with that, how they've grown the business plus the equity. It had assets as high as $20 billion. 19.9, 19.8, 19.7. Then comes the pandemic, they hit a hit. Asset values dropped to about $11.9 billion, so they clearly took a $7 billion hit to their shareholders' equity and still have $11 billion of equity. Very few people can say that. And now you see the values trending back up from 11.8 billion up to 13.6 billion. I think it's at 15 billion based on their reported NAV. But where is it headed, people? Any chance we think when the market normalizes, it's going to be back up at $19 billion in asset values? I, Dan Theok, I'm here to say I don't see why not. So I think this stock will grow by at least 40 to 50% in the next 12 to 18 months as the market normalizes and people appreciate the difference between the NAV and the share price. Next slide, just to show you a little bit about NAV and share price. Black line is the NAV, the net book value divided by the number of shares. Blue line is the share price. And again, more often than not, we're seeing the share price trading as a discount to the NAV. Now, should that be the case, folks? I don't know. You tell me. Again, doesn't make sense to me, and I see the gap widening. As the market gets smarter and understands where the value is, there's no logical reason for this stock to trade at a 40% discount to its NAV. Next slide. I want to do a comparison of some of the others I mentioned. QWI in orange. The dotted line is its NAV. The orange solid line is its share price. So again, it's trading at a discount to its NAV. In this case, trading by roughly a 20% discount. And then we show you what's happening with MJ, which we did before. Next slide, where I look at the 2 Sagicor Selects, the Select F and Select M&D. Again, it's a little bit busy because the NAV and the share price for both are kind of similar, somewhere in the $1 region. But again, principle's the same. Green line, the dotted green line is the actual NAV. The solid green line is the share price. And you can see in the case of Select M&D, the discount isn't that large. It's trading at maybe a 7 or 8% discount to its NAV, whilst for the Select F, it's trading at a wider discount, maybe 15 to 18%. So when I surmise this and I see others trading at a discount of somewhere to 8 to 15%, and MJE trading at a discount of 40%, but MJE has far more reserves than all 3 combined in terms of its shareholders' equity, it doesn't make sense to me, folks. So I'm going to predict that as the market gets to understand the concepts of these managed portfolio funds and the ETFs better, you're going to see the share price trading much closer to the NAV because that's where the value is. So, Mr. Berry, I can't really ask you to comment much. You are the guru. You're the guy that helps to make these stock picks. But what are your thoughts on this analyst's view of the MJE stock price relative to its NAV and the value therein?
In the last 3 months, about 20 million shares at 8.
I like the sound of that. I like the sound of that. Read between the lines, people. Read between the lines. This is a gentleman who has his finger on the button and the control over tens of billions of dollars of equities. Let me just put it that way, humbly. Okay, moving on to our gainers and decliners. I think we're going to start with our decliners first. Kingston Lifestyle Entertainment down by 15%. MPC Clean Energy on the Jamaican dollar side down. Main Event down 11%. I bet you that's going to change next week. SOS down by 9.6%. First Rock down by 8% on the US dollar side. Top gainers, again, we see MPC Clean Energy now on the US side up. SSLVC up by 14%. Select M&D jumping 10%, which is why it's closed the gap between its NAV and its book value. MTL up by 5.44%. And finally, Creamy up by 5.38%. And the summer's here. I think Creamy sales are going to be jumping as we go forward into the summer. Okay, next segment, moving on to the foreign exchange segment. Folks, we're going to start with the usual first graph, which shows the devaluation over the last 4 years. And as usual, it's reflecting sort of an average devaluation rate of about 2.7% per annum. On the next slide, we get to see that that's not linear, that we're seeing peaks and troughs, and it's going up and down, and nobody knows where it's going to stop, with a high in the last few months of 154, and now a low of 145. Next slide, currently settling down to about 149.88. So we've seen a little bit of revaluation in the last 2 weeks. Dollar was in the 150 plus space. Now we see it coming down to 149.88. I hear there's lots of US dollar liquidity out there. Gary, what's happening with this dollar? Where's it going? What should we expect?
Well, we've been tracking this weekly. And, as we said last week, the dollar traded up to around a little bit under 155. We saw that it was revaluing. Last week I mentioned that it would probably go below 150 this week. And we're seeing that. I think, we've seen where the band, the trading band is now widening. You have some financial institutions selling at 148 high, whilst others are selling at 151. And that suggests that, you might see a bottom soon. But there's a lot of J dollar liquidity out there. And I think that J dollar liquidity will help for us to see that bottom sooner rather than later. So I think on the balance of probability, I would think you would see some stabilization going into next week. And, over the next 2 week period, you probably might see it slightly starting to trend back up.
Thanks for that, Gary.
Can I make an interjection here?
Yes, absolutely.
I've been charting the Jamaican dollar versus the US dollar. So about 20 years now, using relative purchasing power parity theorem, right? We all learned it in Economics 101. And it's matched it pretty closely over the years. And right now, the dollar is just about where it should be. I ran some projections using 5% US inflation, 5% Jamaican inflation, 2% US. That's been the pattern for the last 5 years or so. At the end of the year, the J dollar should be about 153. It's pretty where it is. I mean, people start panicking, it goes, but it's a band that we see for other currencies, and it's right about where it should be in that range. So the dollar, unless we have a massive spike of inflation, which is unlikely with Dr. Clark in the saddle, the dollar is not going to go 155, 160, 170. No, I don't see it going past 155 at all. And as my prediction, by the end of the year with the PPP, 153.
Well, I'm with you in terms of we agree with the purchasing power parity, and you mentioned 5 versus 2, and that implies an average devaluation rate of 3%. Where I may not agree, Kevin, is I think we're going to have massive inflation this year. We're certainly seeing a lot of pressure on commodities, and I think for the next 3 to 4 months, we're going to see an extraordinary amount of inflation.
Yeah, but remember the difference, if US inflation shoots up,
Yep.
and we shoot up, as long as the band is within 3%,
Yes.
and that's what the DOJ is building that in, where they tell us 4 to 6%,
Yes.
right? Targeted inflation,
Yes.
and US is 2.
Yes.
They themselves know it's going to move about 3% a year.
No, I agree
Not
with
going to
you.
kill anybody.
Yeah.
No
So
debate there,
guys,
but I think there are going to be some lags and some ebbs, and we're going to see some
So-
unusual movements over the next
But the
3-4
difference,
months.
as I said, why should the differential spike? With Dr. Clark there, yes, if somebody's going to print money, but Nigel Clark ain't going to print money.
Right. So guys, you have
Yes.
to remember, Kevin has more faith in a lot of people
Of
than
course,
we
of course.
traders. So let's get back on track, right? Let's leave Kevin and Dr. Clark and the inflation, yeah? Again, what Kevin has just done, Kevin is saying the dollar should be at 153.
Yes.
So the dollar is
By the
now
end of the year.
140.
No, by the end of the
Let me
year.
finish, Kevin, let me finish. So if the dollar is at 148 to 149, what Kevin is saying, Dan, is buy.
I like the sound of that.
So at the end of the day, Kevin, from our perspective, I'm not really here to get into the economic aspect of where the dollar should rightfully trade. Because at the end of the day, you, just like a lot of traders out there, Kevin, every week you have to buy foreign exchange. So whether you feel the rightful price is at 153, if you have an expense to pay at the end of the week, wherever the dollar is, you're going to have to buy. Yeah. And so one of the things we try to do here is we try to move away from the economic theory, because there are a lot of experts out there like yourselves that can speak to that. But what we try to do is on a weekly basis, try to give guidance to some of our investors, some of our owners, as to where we think the trajectory of the dollar might be, right? So it's more practical, right? So as I said, last week we thought it would come below 150. It has. So some of our customers who waited, they would have benefited this week. And then obviously, if we think it's going to be a turning point, then they could actually look to buy now and benefit when it goes higher. But the point that you made about whether the correct price is 153, if you have, for want of a better word, a portfolio manager who has excess Jamaican, it might be in his interest to buy at 148, 149, which is why I was ribbing you to say buy. Because if it's true value,
let's correct one thing. I'm not an expert, so simply running economics 101 numbers.
Yeah, well, you said it. I didn't.
And it's as I say, roughly it's about 150 is a correct rate, and 153 by the end of the year. So no massive. Listen, I came back to Jamaica in 1989. A dollar was 5 to 1. In 3 years it was 30 to 1. So having experienced that, I ain't worrying about 5% fluctuation.
Yeah, but there's something worse than that, Kevin, which is what the market is going through this year and actually went through last year. And that's called volatility. What destroys a lot of small businesses, Kevin, is the dollar being at 155 last month, and this month it's at 148. Because Kevin, if you're a person,
I was here when I saw a 100% increase in a year. That this 5% volatility is normal.
But you're still missing my point. There's something worse than 100% increase in a year, Kevin. It is a volatile foreign exchange rate that moves by over $5 in a month. That's worse than 100% in a year. Because what it means is that if you go and buy your inventory at 155 and in a month it is 148, your competitor, if he buys at 148, immediately has a massive price advantage. But this segment is not about us getting into the vagaries of the foreign exchange market and why it should and should not be. We're just simple people trying to say to our simple customers, when is a good time to buy, when is a good time to sell, and we go down the road.
And there we're all aligned. All right, great. Thanks, guys. I really do appreciate it. Kevin, Gary, and Chairman, your input has been invaluable today. To our viewers, thank you all for being a part of our weekly investor forum. I'd like to give a special thanks to Kevin Chang for joining us today and giving us that investor briefing. Thanks, Kevin. We're certainly looking forward to having yet another insightful discussion in the upcoming week, when next week we'll be featuring none other than Solomon Sharp, CEO of Main Event. Be sure to follow us on social media to stay up to date with our live streams And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Mayberry Investments Limited. Thank you
And
to
Dan.
all our viewers for tuning in today. Yes, Chairman?
Yes, and now that there's no major elections around, I hope we'll see Kevin more often because I know he usually saves his TV time for just around elections.
I come on, Honorable Master. No, I don't own no TV channel.
We're gonna have him back in 6 months' time, I promise you. All right, folks, thanks so much for tuning in today. We look forward to seeing you next week. Goodbye.